A German visitor named Paul Hentzner came to the English court in 1598 and wrote down everything he saw. He described the queen's red wig, her pale skin, her long fingers covered in rings. Then he wrote something that nobody at the palace ever said out loud. Her teeth, he wrote, were black, not yellow, not stained, black, rotted through. And her breath, he did not say this directly, but other visitors did, was the kind that makes you step back when someone opens their mouth. This was Queen Elizabeth I, the most powerful woman in the world in 1598, the woman who ran the British Empire, the woman whose face appeared on every coin in England. And she smelled, not occasionally, not from a long journey or a hot day, permanently, because Elizabeth I bathed her entire body properly in water approximately once a month, sometimes less. Here is the question that needs answering. Why? She had servants, she had money. She had the biggest palace in England with staff who did nothing but look after her. So why did the most powerful woman in the world walk around smelling like she had not washed in weeks? Because she was following doctors' orders. That is the disgusting truth behind Elizabeth's bathing habits. And once you understand what her doctors actually believed and what they were afraid of, nothing about her hygiene will surprise you anymore. Start with the smell, because you need to understand how bad it actually was before you can understand why nobody fixed it. Elizabeth's bedroom in 1580 smelled of sweat, old perfume, and something underneath both of those, something sour and close that came from a body that was cleaned with a damp cloth and rose water, not with soap and actual water. She had a chamber pot under her bed. Her servants emptied it every morning, but the smell stayed in the fabric of the room, in the curtain, in the bedsheet, in the heavy wool and velvet she wore every single day. Every morning, a servant called the lady of the bedchamber helped Elizabeth get dressed. This meant getting close, very close. Close enough to smell everything. These women were some of the highest-ranked ladies in England. They fought for the job. They wanted it because being close to the Queen meant power, access, and money. They also had to lace up a corset on a woman who had not bathed in 3 weeks. Nobody complained. Nobody could. Complaining about the Queen's smell was not something you survived at the Tudor court. So the smell stayed, and everyone pretended it was not there. Now here is the part that explains everything. In 1580, doctors did not know what germs were. They did not know that bacteria caused disease. They did not know that soap killed infection. None of this existed yet. What they believed instead was something called miasma theory. Miasma theory said that disease came from bad air, specifically from bad air getting inside your body. How did bad air get inside your body? Through your skin. Your skin, doctors believe, had tiny holes in it called pores. These pores could open and close. When they opened, air got in. And if the air outside was bad, if it smelled wrong, if it carried disease, that bad air would enter through your open pores and make you sick. Here is where bathing becomes dangerous. Hot water, doctors said, opened your pores, wide open. And if your pores were wide open in a bathtub full of water, what was stopping disease from flowing straight in through your skin? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This was not a fringe idea. This was mainstream medicine. The best doctors in England believed it. Elizabeth's personal physicians believed it, and they told her, directly, seriously, as medical advice, that bathing too often was dangerous. So she bathed once a month. She was not being lazy. She was being careful. She was following the best medical knowledge available in 1580. The problem is that the best medical knowledge available in 1580 was completely and totally wrong. Drop a comment right now. If your doctor told you that bathing was dangerous, would you have believed them? Tell us. And tell us where in the world you are watching from tonight. So, if Elizabeth was not bathing, what was she doing? Quite a lot, actually, just not with water. Every morning, she was wiped down with a cloth soaked in rose water or lavender water. Her face, her hands, her neck, the visible parts, the parts that people would see. Her teeth were cleaned with a cloth rubbed in salt and ground bone. No toothbrush. The cloth removed some of the decay. Not enough. Elizabeth's teeth were going black by the 1580s, and by the 1590s, she had lost so many that she started stuffing cloth into her cheeks before important meetings to fill out the sunken shape her face had taken on. Her hair was washed more often than her body, but even that was not frequent by modern standard. What she used instead of bathing was perfume, enormous quantities of it. The court of Elizabeth I used more perfume than any royal court in Europe. Not because the English loved nice smells, because they needed to cover bad ones. Elizabeth's gloves were soaked in perfume overnight before she wore them. Her dresses were stored with dried flowers and herbs to absorb the smell of the body that wore them. Pomanders, little balls filled with cloves and cinnamon, were carried everywhere and held close to the nose when passing through a room that smelled particularly bad. The entire court smelled like a mixture of roses and something underneath the roses that the roses were not quite strong enough to hide. Here is the part that most history books skip. Elizabeth was not unusual. She was not dirty by the standards of her time. Once a month was actually considered reasonable for a queen. The very poor washed even less, not because they chose to, but because heating enough water for a bath took hours and cost money they did not have. The very rich bathed more often, but not much more. Monthly bathing was normal across all of Europe in the 1580s. What was unusual was the black teeth. That came from sugar. Elizabeth ate more sugar than almost anyone in England, because sugar was expensive, and expensive things were what powerful people ate. She put it in everything: her wine, her meat dishes, her medicines, and her doctors prescribed it. Because in 1580, sugar was classified as medicine. So her doctors were telling her to avoid water because it opened the pores and let in disease. And they were telling her to eat more sugar because it was warming and restorative and good for a queen's constitution. Both pieces of advice were destroying her. The sugar rotted her teeth. The lack of proper washing meant that infections that clean skin would have resisted could take hold more easily. The very framework of medicine that was supposed to protect her was the thing making her worse. By 1598, the year Paul Hentzner visited and noticed the black teeth, Elizabeth was 65 years old and her body was carrying 65 years of monthly bathing, daily perfume, and a diet built on the things her doctors called medicine. She died 5 years later, March 1603. Her physicians in those final days prescribed sugar in warm wine to help her eat. Right up until the end, the treatment was the problem. Paul Hentzner went home to Germany after his visit. He wrote his account of the English court. He published it in 1612, 9 years after Elizabeth died. He described the power, the jewels, the ceremony, the extraordinary display of the greatest court in Europe. And he mentioned the teeth. He mentioned the teeth the way you mention something that everybody in the room already knows but nobody says. Not dramatically, not with horror, just as a fact, sitting next to all the other facts. Her teeth are black, a defect the English seem subject to from their too great use of sugar. That sentence, written by a visitor who spent one afternoon at the English court, tells you more about Elizabeth I than most biographies do. The most powerful woman in the world. Monthly baths, black teeth, cloth stuffed in her cheeks, rose water on a cloth every morning, and perfume on everything else. Not because she was careless, not because she was dirty, because the people whose job it was to keep her healthy told her this was how you stayed alive. They were wrong about almost everything, and she paid for it every single day. The next video goes inside the room where Elizabeth started every morning, the bedchamber where her ladies helped her dress, where the perfume was applied, where the daily performance of being the queen began before a single visitor arrived. What happened in that room and who was allowed in tells you more about power in Tudor England than anything else we have looked at. Which Tudor figure should we look at next? Drop it in the comments and tell us where in the world you are watching from tonight. Subscribe to Unseen Dark Time. That video is already waiting.